Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Right, so let's just dive right into it. Okay. So lab grown meat, is it halal? Let me just get set up over here. All right, so with lab grown meat, now yearly we have approximately 150 billion animals. They're slaughtered for their meat, and global meat demand for the projected 9 billion population is expected to grow by approximately 60% by 2050. Now, this these are huge numbers, and obviously you have the strongest minds, or rather the most ingenious of minds, working on how they can minimize carbon footprint. So they came up with lab grown meat. Now, growing meat in a lab, just some background behind it. Now, in order to grow meat in a lab, what the scientists do is that they extract stem cells from a living animal, and they place them in an environment that allows it to grow, replicate into trillions of muscle cells. The basic process is they extract cells from a living animal. They place the cells in a nutrient-rich medium that feeds the cells, allows them to grow and replicate up to trillion muscle cells. They exercise the cells with electric currents and stuff to increase the mass, and they harvest the meat and perform other further processing if required. So the first lab-grown burger, I have a few facts over here. It contained 20,000 cow muscle cells. 20,000 cow muscle cells. So, and it's evident that a single stem cell extraction from an animal has the potential to create a lot of meat, right? Now, the issue is this kind of meat, is it halal? Is it permissible for consumption? Now, the Muslim jurists, they've explicitly discussed the concept of extraction from a living animal based on the hadith and a juridical principle that whatever is cut from an animal while it's alive, then the separated portion is considered as dead, right? So if a person cuts something from an animal while it's alive, the separated portion is going to be considered as dead. This is a famous principle. So that means, what does that mean? I mean, you can't just go to a cow, lop off, the back portion of it and make a burger out of it and say, you know what, it's halal. It doesn't work like that. So it wouldn't be permissible to do something like that, where you just go to a live animal, you take your cutting tools and you hack off a piece, and you expect that something like that is going to be halal. So anything that has life in them, if a person were to cut it off and start consuming it, that would be considered as haram. And this is strictly with those things that have life in them, right? So there are certain things that don't have life. For example, wool, right? Wool doesn't have life. So if you shear off the wool, and people don't eat wool, but you can use it. It's permissible to use wool. There's nothing wrong with it. It's permissible to use hair, as I'm going to discuss in one of the coming questions. Now, basically, if a person goes to a live animal, hacks off a chunk of meat, or from that animal, that chunk of meat would not be permissible for consumption. Now, the ruling on lab-grown meat, it depends on the source of cells. Where is it coming from? Now, the most popular and oldest being muscle stem cells. Now, based on the principle that I mentioned, muscle stem cells are from amongst the parts of an animal that have life within it, right? It has life within it, and it's going to be considered as impure and impermissible if those muscle cells are extracted from an animal without slaughtering it according to the Islamic guidelines. So, what does that mean? If it's not slaughtered, if that animal is not slaughtered according to the Islamic guidelines, right? The extracted cells, even though they're alive according to science, they're considered dead according to the Sharia. And the same thing applies, the same principle applies to the cells that replicate from it. Therefore, regardless of whether the lab-grown meat contains the initial extracted cells or only the replicated ones, the Sharia regards it as maita. The Sharia regards it as maita, meaning that it's carrion, it's dead, it's impure, it's impermissible, it's haram to consume, because the Islamic slaughtering process to purify the meat, that never took place. That was not even found. But on the flip side, if the animal is slaughtered according to Islamic guidelines, its cells are not considered alive, and as such, they don't carry the possibility of being dead. So, therefore, if cells are extracted from an Islamically slaughtered animal, then any meat grown in the lab through such cells is not only permissible, even the consumed meat, right, does not contain any portion of the original cells. It's fine. It would be permissible for consumption. So if there's a company, hypothetically speaking, they want to produce halal, lab-grown meat using muscle stem cells, they can do it. They can extract stem cells from an Islamically slaughtered animal, assuming it does not use any other ingredients in the process that would render it impermissible. For example, bovine fetal serum, it's okay, no problem, as long as that animal is Islamically slaughtered. As long as it is Islamically slaughtered, it would be permissible for consumption. Okay, let's see, what else do I have to discuss over here? Okay. All right. Now, follow-up question to this. Now, there's a newer approach, right, which involves extracting induced pluripotent stem cells, right, iPSC, from the tip of a dropped chicken feather. Now, chicken feather, right, I explained the principle at the beginning, that anything that doesn't have life within it, it's considered okay. There's nothing wrong with it. If something has life, it's haram. So as I said, you can't go to you can't, if you have a farm or something, you can't go to your farm animal, take a knife and lop off a chunk of meat and make a burger out of it. You can't do that. It would be haram. It would not be permissible. But let's say, you have a chicken or something, drops a feather, okay? Now that chicken feather, it's tahir, doesn't have any life inside. That chicken feather doesn't have any life inside. So based on the principle that I explained, it doesn't carry the possibility of life. So any cells extracted from that chicken feather, you take those cells and you grow it in a petri dish in the laboratory, it doesn't hold the ruling of meta, of carrion. Hence, the meat grown from such cells, assuming it contains no other impermissible ingredients, I would say it's halal. I would say it's permissible for consumption, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Okay? So now just to recap what I discussed so far, starting with the principle, the jurists, they've discussed that the concept of extracting from living animal, based on the famous hadith and juridical principle, whatever is cut from an animal while it is alive, then the separated portion is considered dead according to Sharia. Thus, if a part of the animal separates from it in such a manner that the animal continues to live post-separation, then that separated portion constitutes meta, carrion. Okay? Thus, any cells extracted from that separated part, it would not be permissible for consumption. You can't, take those cells, grow them in a petri dish, make meat out of it. It would not be permissible unless. Now this applies in those parts of the animal that are considered to have life within them, right? Because death cannot apply where there was no life to begin with, right? Such as wool, right? You shear a sheep, and that wool, lanolin. Sometimes people use oil from the wool. It's called lanolin. That would be okay. That would be okay for if a person uses those cells. It would be okay for consumption. There would be nothing wrong with it because there's no life in those animals to begin with, or rather, there's no life in the wool to begin with. Let's see. Okay, so let's move forward to see. So, to the one who's asking the questions, what should a person do if he's suffering from doubts in Islam? Well, if a person is suffering from doubts, it's best that you speak to someone about what those doubts exactly are, and so those doubts can be alleviated. They can be put to rest. So it's important that doubts they're jotted down, and we discuss them with someone who we feel is competent in responding to those questions. So that would be the best way to remove doubts. You speak to someone whom you trust, and hopefully that individual is in a position where he can respond and he can answer, and he can alleviate those doubts and answer the questions that a person has. How long are the breaks in madrasa in Pakistan? They're in Ramadan and in Eid. How do you spend time with your teachers in Pakistan? They have 500 to 600 students in one class. That's true. So you can't really spend time with them. I'll be straight with you. You can't really spend time with them because they're very big classes. The smaller classes, yes, absolutely. The first 5 years, the classes are relatively small, so you'll have access to your teachers. But the last 2 years, the classes are fairly large. You will not have time to ask questions. I mean, you could probably squeeze in a few questions, but you would have to walk all the way to the house of the teacher, simply because it's just there's just too much material to cover, and there's just too many questions that people have. So the best way, if you want your questions to be answered, is to get them answered in class. Okay. Brush made from pig bristles. Now, a brush made from pig bristles, first and foremost, the pig, every part of the pig is considered as najasul ayn. It's intrinsically impure. A pig is intrinsically impure. Every part of the pig is intrinsically impure. So if there's a brush made from pig bristles, it would not be permissible to use. We should avoid using a brush made from pig bristles. You may come across some fatwa where a scholar says that using pig bristles to sew leather, it would be permissible. In those days, that was because they didn't have strong enough tools to sew leather. Thus, they would use pig bristles, and this was according to Imam Abu Yusuf, that he permitted the usage of pig bristles to sew leather. And as I said, that's because they didn't have strong material in those days, and that's why it was permissible for use. So he allowed it based on juristic preference. He allowed it based on juristic preference because there was no other way to join leather. But nowadays, we don't need to use. I mean, there's so many other options. We don't need to resort to a brush made from pig bristles. I mean, there's so many other brushes that nylon brush and different types of brushes out there which are not made from pig bristles. So use that. You don't need to use a brush made from pig bristles. Okay. Brother Asif What are the major differences between Sunni and Shia? Okay. Just 1 minute. Okay, so the major differences between Sunni and Shia, it's an aqidah difference. It's a difference in creed. As Muslims, we believe in the kalima la ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. We believe in the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we believe in the finality of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Shia, they believe in the concept of imama. This is not something that we believe in. We don't believe in imama. This is an alien concept that has been grafted onto the Sunni understanding of what constitutes Islam. So the imama concept, this is something that is alien. This is considered as strange, and it's not something that we believe in. They believe that the imams, they're infallible, they're human beings, and they're infallible. So this is not something that we believe in. Their maqam and their station is higher than the anbiya. Again, we don't believe in that. I mean, as far as the imams are concerned, yes, absolutely. It's we respect them. They were from the Ahlul Bayt. They were from the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They were from the lineage of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So yeah, yes, in that respect, we have the utmost respect for them. We honor them, and this is our belief as well, that those who are from the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we make sure that they are well respected, they're taken care of, and that we don't do anything that would disrespect them. So the imams of the Shia, so far as respect is concerned, so far as honoring them is concerned, that's something that we do. But we draw the line when it comes to saying that their station is higher than the station of the Anbiya. Their station is higher than the station of the prophets. That's where we draw the line, and that they're infallible and they're above the prophets in every single way. This is not something that we believe in. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not send imams for guidance. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the anbiya for guidance of mankind. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent anbiya for the guidance of mankind. So the Shia, who believe in imams, the infallibility of the imams, and that their station is higher than the imams, this is problematic according to Sunni belief. There are some Shia who believe in the concept of the Quran not being complete. I mean, it's mentioned in their books. Possibly now Shia, they don't believe in it, but this is clearly mentioned in their books written by Allama Baqir Majlisi. He's mentioned this, that the Quran is incomplete. And this is another problematic belief that is common amongst the Shia. It's something that we as Sunnis disagree with. So these are just a few of their beliefs, which as Sunnis we would have a problem with. And these are just the major differences between Sunni and Shia. So the first is imama. Right, this is a big difference between us and the Shia. And the second is the completedness of the Quran. That is the Quran complete, or are there chapters missing in the Quran? And this is another fundamental difference between the Sunni and between the Shia. Okay. Let's see. Right. What do we have? Okay. What advice would you give to a student of knowledge who is studying in Pakistan? Read as much as possible. Make sure you make your bedroom in the library. Make your bedroom in the library, and do whatever you can as far as reading up on the material that you're studying. All right. What is rennet and what is the ruling regarding it? Okay, so I've discussed this before. Let me just touch up on this again. Rennet, it's a natural complex of enzymes that's produced in the lining membranes of the fourth stomach of mammals. The active enzyme in rennet It's something called, I think it's pronounced like chymazin or something. I think that is the pronunciation. I'm not really sure. There are other important enzymes in rennet, pepsin and lipase. Now, the role of chymosin is to curdle the milk in the stomach, which is essential for young animals. So the milk does not just follow through without it gaining, the necessary proteins. Now, chymosin secretion is at maximum during the first few days after the birth, and it decreases after that. Now, for this reason, the younger the animal, the stronger the enzymes are going to be. Now, rennet, right? The method of making cheese, right? Even now, this is how cheese is made. First, the milk is heated to destroy, any possible harmful bacteria, and then it's cooled. The milk is then acidified by starter culture of lactic acid bacteria added with rennet to curdle the milk. Now, some cheeses are curdled only by the acidity, but most use rennet. Now, after the curdling, the curds are removed, cut, and drained. Thereafter, it is matured and processed into various different cheeses. Now, what is the Shari'i ruling for animal rennet? Now, the practice of making cheese, this is ancient, right? And it was done well before the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, cheese was made for the reason that it was a means of preserving food which could last for a long period of time. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself was presented cheese made by the Persians, right? The Magians, the fire worshippers, and he ate it. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam consumed that cheese. Now, the Shari'i ruling of rennet is that if it is derived from an unlawful animal, then the rennet will be unlawful. Okay, so far so good. Now, rennet extracted from pigs and other non-lawful animals, this will not be permissible to consume. If the animal is lawful and it's slaughtered in accordance to Sharia, then the rennet will be lawful to consume. As for rennet that is extracted from lawful animals that are not slaughtered in accordance to Sharia, according to Abu Hanifa, rahmatullah alayh, it's permissible for consumption. It is permissible for consumption. So if there is a baby calf, right? If a baby calf was killed and the rennet, it was killed unlawfully, not according to the standards set by Sharia, not according to the standards set by Islam, and it was just killed, and the rennet was extracted from its stomach, and that rennet was used to curdle cheese. This would be permissible. That would be permissible. That cheese would be permissible for consumption. Okay, so microbial rennet. This is something, and this is another common question I get: is microbial rennet permissible? Yes, it is, because it has nothing to do with animals. It's all plant-based. Microbial rennet is plant-based. Nothing wrong with microbial rennet. Okay, and this ruling of Abu Hanifa rahmatullah, it's based on that rennet. It has nothing to do with the meat of the animal. It's similar to an egg, and I think I've given this example before. It's similar to, let's say, you come across a chicken, it's dead, you open it up, and there is a few eggs that are completely intact. The egg has nothing to do with the death of the chicken or how it was killed or how it was slaughtered. If the eggs are intact, there's nothing wrong with the eggs. It's permissible for consumption. Same thing. If you come across a cow, right? It's dead. You don't know how it dies, and milk is coming out of it, right? Milk is coming out of it. The milk has nothing to do with the death of the animal or how it was killed. So it would be permissible for consumption. That milk would be permissible for consumption. So same thing with rennet. It has the same exact concept, and this was why Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi said what he said, that it's permissible because it's coming from the fourth stomach of the calf, which has nothing to do with how the animal has been killed or how it was slaughtered. All right. What advice would you give to a student of mine who is studying in Pakistan? Oh, I think I already answered that. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's see. Is it permissible to neuter one's cat? In principle, it will only be permissible to neuter, castrate an animal if there's a valid reason of doing so. For example, if it's beneficial or it prevents a harm. For example, it is done to enhance the animal's growth, perhaps, or to maybe stop it from breeding or aggressive behavior. Then it would be permissible to neuter an animal. Therefore, it will be permissible to neuter one's pet cat if it's beneficial for the cat or it prevents a harm. Then it would be okay to neuter the animal. Is wearing fake eyelashes haram? No, it's not if it's done for the beautification of the husband, right? Just as it's wajib and it's necessary and it's an obligation that the husband dresses nicely for the spouse. Same thing for the spouse. So fake eyelashes are fine as long as those eyelashes are not made from human hair. If they're made from synthetic hair or animal hair, it would be okay. All right, there would be nothing wrong with that. So fake eyelashes would be permissible. Okay, are you allowed to do sajda tilawa without wudu? No, because sajda tilawa. So sajda tilawa is there are 14 places in the Quran where there's a sujood that you come across them. You have to do a sujood at that point or after completing the recitation of that particular ayah. So one cannot do sujood. One cannot do sujood if wudu is not performed. So wudu is a requisite because sajda, this is a juz of salah. This is part of salah. So to go into sujood, this is as if you're fulfilling one part of the salat. Thus, doing sajda tilawat without wudu would not be permissible. Wudu would be a requirement. Will the deceased who passed away due to COVID be washed? Yes, absolutely. Use PPE. Use protective gear and equipment and stuff, and wash the mayyit. This is the least we can do, and this is the haqq of the deceased. So we use a hazmat suit or whatever we need to use. Put the masks on, put the gown on, and make sure that the deceased is washed to the best of our ability. If there's fear of contagion, then from a distance we can wash. We pour water over the mayyit at least one time, and so we can wash from a distance, and that would be sufficient, inshallah. Can we say Merry Christmas? There's this. I was reading. Actually, one of my friends was telling me that there was one guy, and someone told him he was straight off. He had just come from abroad. This is a joke. It's not real. So one guy says Merry Christmas to him, and he doesn't know English. So he goes, Merry Christmas? Nahi, Teri Christmas. So can we say Merry Christmas? I mean, as Muslims, we're sensitive to our aqaid. We're sensitive when it comes to our beliefs, tawheed, oneness of Allah. We abstain from whatever could possibly contaminate our iman, our belief. So based on this, I would say because Christmas still has religious connotations. I mean, not still. I mean, it does have religious connotations. So I would say it's prohibited for Muslims to say Merry Christmas during Christmas because there are religious connotations that are associated with the 25th of December. So Abdullah bin Amr, there's a hadith that whoever resides in the lands of the non-Arabs and then celebrates the religious occasions, Nayroz, Mahrajan, these were holidays in Iran at that time. They still celebrate them. So he says, and emulates their practices and thereafter dies in such a condition, he's going to be raised with them on the day of Qiyamah. I mean, this is a very strong and powerful hadith from Abdullah ibn Amr. And this hadith is in Sunan al-Kubra of Bayhaqi. So our scholars, our predecessors, the jurists, they've taken a very strong stance on this matter. They've classified the act of granting a non-Muslim a gift during their religious festival as prohibited, that it's not permissible. They considered it tantamount to kufr. So adopting and imitating any of these practices during during Christmas, specifically the 25th of December, this would not be permissible because of those religious connotations. I mean, we can say instead of Merry Christmas, say Meri Kismat or something in Urdu. Just play around with the words a little bit. Meri Kismat, my destiny, or something along those lines, or say Meri Christmas or Teri Christmas. It's fine if you say something like that. The guy's probably going to wonder, what is this guy saying? Think twice about saying it again. But no, we could say something like Happy Holidays, something along those lines. Say Happy Holidays, or because it's our holidays as well, and it doesn't have any religious connotations. All right, can we buy a paintbrush made from weasel hair? Yes. Yeah, just like we're allowed to wear, fur made from weasel or mink or fox or any animals besides pig, really. You could use the hair of a weasel if you're using that on a paintbrush. Yeah, it's okay. Nothing wrong with it. Okay, are the breaks before Ramadan or after? The breaks are before. You're during Ramadan. I believe it's 2 weeks before Ramadan and 2 weeks after Ramadan. So the entire Ramadan, so that's 4, and then 6 and 8. So I think it's a total of 8 weeks in total, if I'm not mistaken. It's been some time, so I don't really remember. But they're usually back about, the classes, they're back in full force about 3 weeks after Ramadan. That's when, because the first 2 weeks, it's all admissions and everything. But the third week, they're back at it. Okay. Can we do khatam for someone who is sick? Yeah, absolutely. Just don't do it. Just don't make it a requirement. It's not something that's mentioned in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So as long as you don't consider it from the wajibat, from the obligatory things that I have to do this, then it's okay to do khatam for someone who is sick. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. Let's see, what else do we have over here today? Okay. Let's see. Okay, is balsamic vinegar halal? Yes, it is. I think I've addressed this before. White wine vinegar, red wine vinegar, tongue twister. It's halal because the chemical composition has changed. It's denatured. The chemical composition has changed. It's no longer wine. It's no longer wine. Yes, wine is prohibited. Alcohol is prohibited, but if the chemical composition has changed into something else completely, it's permissible for consumption. Okay. All right, that's it for today, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. And if there are further questions, everyone knows how to get in touch with me, inshallah. Jazakallah khairan. And we'll continue next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.